"Get your hands off that rack. Those gowns are not for you." She didn't whisper it. She said it loud enough for the entire floor to hear. And Celeste Oduya didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just looked at the woman. This woman in her pressed blazer and her practiced smile gone cold, and said quietly, "I'm sorry." "You heard me." That's where this story begins. Not with the lawyers, not with the press release, not with the phone call that would end a 17-year career in 40 seconds. It begins with a rack of evening gowns on the third floor of Harrington and Vale, the most prestigious department store in downtown Vancouver, and a black woman standing in front of them on a Tuesday afternoon in November, holding a small piece of paper in her left hand. The paper mattered, but nobody asked about it. If you've ever walked into a room and felt the temperature drop, not from the air conditioning, but from the people, then you already understand something about what Celeste Oduya experienced that afternoon. If you haven't, stay with this story, because it's not just about what happened to her. It's about what happens when people decide, in the span of 3 seconds, and without a single piece of evidence, that they already know everything they need to know about a person. Like the video, if you've ever been judged before you opened your mouth. Celeste Oduya was 51 years old. She had grown up in Scarborough, Ontario, the second of 4 children, daughter of a nurse and a transit worker who had immigrated from Nigeria in 1971 with $40 between them and a suitcase held shut with a belt. She had put herself through law school at Dalhousie, articled at a mid-sized firm in Halifax, and spent the better part of 2 decades building something that most people in her industry would have called quietly remarkable. She didn't call it anything. She just worked. By the time that November rolled around, Celeste was a senior partner at Pemberton Oduya LLP, a boutique firm she had co-founded with her colleague, a man named Alistair Pemberton, 11 years earlier. The firm specialized in estate law and high net worth asset management. Their client list was not public. It didn't need to be. She was in Vancouver for 4 days, attending a conference on cross-provincial estate transfers. The conference itself was straightforward. Panels, presentations, a dinner on the second evening that she had half considered skipping. What wasn't straightforward was the reason she had come early, a full day before registration opened. Her mother had died 6 weeks ago. Celeste had spent those 6 weeks doing what she always did when the world tilted. She worked. She filed the documents. She handled the probate. She returned the calls. She didn't cry at the funeral, not because she wasn't grieving, but because she was the eldest daughter present, and someone had to hold the program and make sure her Aunt Cecilia didn't collapse in the front pew. She cried twice, briefly, in the car. Once on the highway home from Scarborough, and once at 3 in the morning in her kitchen, sitting on the floor with a cup of tea that had gone cold. What her mother had left her, besides the practical things, a house in Scarborough, a savings account, a collection of Yoruba proverbs written in a small green notebook, was something Celeste hadn't expected. A letter. And with the letter, a membership card. The card was for Harrington and Vale's private client program. Her mother, Adunola Oduya, had been a member for 22 years. Celeste hadn't known. She hadn't known a lot of things about her mother. She was discovering. Adunola had been careful with money her entire life in a way that looked, from the outside, like scarcity. She reused plastic bags. She bought her shoes in the off-season. She turned off lights with a dedication that bordered on religious. What Celeste had not known, what none of her children had known, was that Adunola had also, quietly and methodically, saved, invested, grown. The house in Scarborough was paid off. The savings account had 6 figures in it. And for 22 years, she had maintained a private client account at Harrington and Vale, using it perhaps twice a year, treating herself to something beautiful in a way she never talked about, never showed off, never explained. The letter said, "I want you to use it, Celeste. Go somewhere nice. Buy something you'd never buy yourself. That's an order from your mother." So she was here, in Vancouver, on a Tuesday afternoon, standing in front of a rack of evening gowns on the 3rd floor of the most prestigious department store in the city, holding the membership card in her left hand, wearing a gray wool coat that was not new, and boots that were practical rather than elegant. Because she had come straight from the airport, and she hadn't thought about how she looked. Because she was 51 years old and a senior partner at her own law firm, and she hadn't thought she needed to. She had not, it turned out, factored in a woman named Rochelle. The full name, Celeste would learn later, was Rochelle Garreau. She was the floor manager of Harrington and Vale's private client division. Third floor, invitation only, accessed by a separate elevator that required a key fob scan. She had worked at the store for 9 years. By all accounts, she was good at her job. She had a talent for reading customers, or at least she believed she did. What Rochelle Garreau saw when the elevator doors opened and Celeste Oduya stepped out was a woman who did not fit. The coat was wrong. The boots were wrong. The rolling carry-on bag, small, functional, navy blue, was very wrong. The third floor of Harrington and Vale did not accommodate rolling carry-on bags. Its clients arrived without luggage, or with luggage that was being handled by someone else. Rochelle was across the floor in 11 seconds. "Can I help you find something?" she said. Her voice was pleasant. Professionally pleasant, in the specific way that is not quite pleasant at all. I'm just looking for now," Celeste said. "Thank you." She had moved toward the evening gowns, a long curved rack near the south window, the kind of display that was lit from below so that the fabric seemed to glow. She reached out and touched the sleeve of a deep burgundy gown, silk charmeuse, the kind of thing her mother would have called sensible extravagance. "Get your hands off that rack. Those gowns are not for you." The floor went quiet. There were perhaps 6 other people visible. 2 other clients, a junior sales associate near the accessories wall, a man restocking scarves near the fitting rooms. They all heard it. Celeste turned around slowly. "I'm sorry," she said. Rochelle didn't repeat herself. She didn't need to. She straightened slightly and said, "This floor is for private clients. Do you have a membership?" "I do," Celeste said. She held up the card. Rochelle glanced at it. Something moved across her face. Not quite recognition, not quite doubt. Something closer to the expression of a person who has committed to a direction and is not yet willing to turn around. "That card needs to be verified," she said. "At the service desk." "Downstairs." "I don't need to go downstairs," Celeste said. "I was told I could verify at the floor concierge. That's standard procedure for private clients." "Who told you that?" "The membership documentation." A pause. "I'll need to verify that." "Please do." Rochelle did not move to verify it. Instead, she said, "Where did you get that card?" And there it was. Not "When did you join?" or "Can I pull up your account?" Where did you get it? As if the most plausible explanation was that Celeste had found it somewhere, or borrowed it, or taken it from someone. Subscribe to Heirloom Tales if you want to keep hearing stories like this one. We find the ones that stay with you. Celeste looked at her for a moment. Then she said, "It belonged to my mother. Is your mother a member?" "My mother passed away 6 weeks ago. I'm her beneficiary. The membership transferred to me." "That's also in the documentation." "I'd need to see proof of that." "What kind of proof?" "A death certificate, executor documentation. Something official." Celeste looked at her steadily. "I'm an estate lawyer," she said. "I have all of that. I also have it in digital format on my phone. If you'd like to call your membership services line right now, they have my file. My name is Celeste Oduya, Oduya. The membership number is on the card." Rochelle took the card. She held it in a way that suggested she was looking at it, but Celeste could tell she was not really reading it. She was performing the act of looking at it while deciding what to do next. What she did next was not call membership services. "I'm going to have to ask you to wait in the lobby," Rochelle said. "Downstairs, while I sort this out." "I'm not going downstairs," Celeste said. Her voice was still level, completely level, the kind of level that takes a long time to develop. "I am a verified private client of this store. I have documentation of my membership. I am standing in the section I am entitled to be in. If you'd like to verify my account, you can do that here, from this floor, right now. I'll wait." Rochelle's jaw tightened. "I'm going to need to call security." "You can call whoever you'd like," Celeste said. "I'm not going anywhere." The man who responded to the call was a security supervisor named Marcus Boudreau. He was a large, quiet man who had been in building security for over 20 years, and he had, in that time, developed a reasonably accurate sense for what a situation actually was, versus what it was being presented as. He stepped off the elevator, looked at Rochelle, looked at Celeste, looked at the half-dozen people standing very still around the floor and said, "Good afternoon. Can I ask what's going on?" Rochelle began to speak first. She explained, in the language of someone who is confident they are in charge, that there was an issue with a customer's credentials, that the customer was refusing to proceed to the service desk, that the situation had become difficult. Boudreaux listened. Then he turned to Celeste. "Ma'am," he said, "can you tell me your side of it?" This mattered. That word, your side of it, was not nothing. Celeste noticed it, she explained. Calmly, completely, the way she would explain a case to a client, the membership, her mother, the transfer, the documentation she had available, the procedure she had been told to follow, the request she had made to verify through the floor concierge, which was standard practice, which she had confirmed before she came. Boudreaux listened to all of it. Then he said, "Do you have the card?" She gave it to the manager, Celeste said. He looked at Rochelle. Rochelle handed him the card. He looked at it for about 4 seconds. Then he looked at Rochelle. Then he said, "I'm going to call membership services." He made the call on his radio, stepping a few feet away. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes. When he came back, his expression had changed in a small but specific way. The way a person's face changes when they have just confirmed something they suspected and are now doing mental arithmetic about what happens next. "Miss Oduya," he said, "I apologize for the delay. Your membership has been confirmed. Your account is fully active and in good standing." He paused. "Would you like to continue shopping?" "I would," Celeste said. He handed her back the card. Then he turned to Rochelle. "I need to speak with you," he said. "Now, please." What happened in the next 10 minutes, Celeste was not present for. She would hear parts of it later, from a junior associate named Priya, who had been on the floor, and who found Celeste's contact information through the store's records and called her 3 days later, voice shaking slightly, to tell her what she'd witnessed. Priya said she'd been wanting to say something since it happened. She said she was sorry she hadn't said it sooner. What Celeste was present for was this. She walked back to the rack of evening gowns. She stood in front of the burgundy silk charmeuse for a long moment. Then she took it off the rack and held it up in the light. It was, she decided, exactly the kind of thing her mother would have bought. She found a chair near the window. The third floor had chairs, small curved things upholstered in pale gray, and she sat down. She hadn't sat down since the airport. Her feet were tired. Outside, through the floor-to-ceiling glass, she could see the street 5 stories below, the November rain coming sideways, the yellow lights of a city that moved without knowing or caring what was happening inside this particular room. She thought about her mother, about Adunola, who had been born in Ibadan and come to Canada with almost nothing, and who had reused plastic bags and turned off lights and bought shoes in the off-season, and had quietly and without ever once mentioning it to her children, built something. Not because she was trying to prove anything, because she believed in the accumulation of small dignities, the kind nobody sees coming. Celeste stayed on the 3rd floor for 1 hour and 40 minutes. She was attended to, after Boudreaux's conversation with Rochelle, by a senior associate named Fitzwilliam, who brought her 3 options in her size, offered her tea, and did not once say anything that required a response beyond yes, or "That's lovely, thank you." He was good at his job in the way that matters, which is to say he understood that his job was to make her feel like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She bought 2 things. The burgundy gown, which she planned to wear to the conference dinner, and a small silk scarf, ivory with a pattern of leaves, that she thought her Aunt Cecilia would like. Now, here's the part of the story that Celeste did not know while she was sitting in that chair. While she was buying the gown, a man named Harrington was being notified. Not a general manager, not a regional director, the name on the building. A man named Charles Harrington III, whose grandfather had opened the original Harringtons in Victoria in 1961 and whose father had expanded it to Vancouver and Calgary, and whose company, Harrington and Vale Holdings, now operated 14 locations across Canada and had, among its various investments and holdings, a significant financial arrangement with a firm called Pemberton Oduya LLP. It was not a widely known arrangement. Estate law firms rarely advertise their institutional clients. But Pemberton Oduya LLP had been managing a portion of the Harrington family trust for the past 7 years, and the relationship had been managed, on the firm's side, by Celeste Oduya herself. Charles Harrington III found out about what had happened on the 3rd floor of his Vancouver location. Not from Boudreaux and not from management, and not from any internal report. He found out because the junior associate, Priya, the same one who would later call Celeste, had texted a friend who worked in the corporate office. And that text had made its way up in about the time it takes for a bad piece of news to travel through a building full of people who know each other. He called the store's general manager. He asked 2 questions. The first was, "Is this accurate?" The general manager, a man named Douglas, said that it appeared to be. The second question was, "Is she still in the building?" She was. Celeste was at the register, the burgundy gown folded in tissue paper, when she was approached by a man she didn't immediately recognize out of context. He was in his 60s, silver-haired, wearing a coat that was expensive without announcing itself. He came across the floor quickly, with the specific gait of a person who is used to their presence resolving problems before they arrive. "Miss Oduya," he said. She looked up. "Charles Harrington," he said. "I believe we've spoken by phone a number of times." She recognized his voice before she fully placed his face. Then she placed both. "Mr. Harrington," she said. He did not offer a handshake first. He said, "I owe you an apology, a significant one. What happened here today was completely unacceptable, and I want you to know that I take full responsibility for the culture that permitted it." The register associate, Fitzwilliam, had gone very still. Celeste looked at Charles Harrington for a moment. She said, "I appreciate that. I'd like to speak with you at length," he said, "if you're willing. Not here, whenever is convenient for you. I want to understand what you experienced, and I want to make sure it doesn't happen again. Not to you and not to anyone else in this store." "I'm in Vancouver until Friday," she said. "I'll make myself available whenever works for you." She nodded. She picked up the bag with the gown. Then she said, "Your grandfather opened the original store in Victoria, didn't he?" He seemed slightly surprised that she knew this. "He did. 1961. My mother was a member here for 22 years, Celeste said. She never mentioned it to any of us. I found the card in her things after she passed." She paused. She was not a person who spent money on herself, so when she did, it must have meant something to her. I'd like to think it was a place that treated her well. Something shifted in Charles Harrington's face. The professional apology became something more personal, more uncomfortable, the kind of discomfort that is appropriate. "I hope it was," he said quietly. "I'm going to find out." They met Thursday morning in a boardroom at Harrington and Vale's corporate offices downtown. Charles Harrington brought Douglas, the general manager, and a woman named Solange, the head of HR. Celeste came alone. The meeting lasted 2 hours. She did not shout. She did not perform her anger for anyone's benefit. She laid out what had happened in the same way she would lay out a file, in order, with precision, with no editorializing beyond what the facts already said. She told them about the public comment. She told them about where did you get that card. She told them about being asked to leave the floor while her account was verified. She told them about the security call. She also told them about her mother. She told them that Adenola Oduya had come to this country with $40 and a suitcase held shut with a belt, and had worked 40 years in healthcare, and had saved quietly her entire life, and had maintained a membership at this store for 22 years in a way that felt, now, like a private act of dignity, a way of insisting, in a space that was not always designed for her, on her own right to belong. She told them that what happened on Tuesday afternoon had, in a small but real way, insulted that. Nobody in the room said anything for several seconds. Then Solange said, "Thank you for telling us that." It was the most useful thing anyone said in the first 45 minutes. Rochelle Guerreau was not present at the meeting. She had not been present at the store since Wednesday morning. Celeste was not told the details. Those were, as Douglas put it carefully, an internal matter. But the junior associate Priya, who called on Saturday, confirmed that Rochelle had not come back in. Priya also said that 2 other associates had come forward after the incident with accounts of similar behavior by Rochelle toward other customers, that those accounts were being documented. That Douglas had been, in Priya's words, pretty shaken up. Celeste thanked her for calling. She said she meant it. On Friday morning, her last day in Vancouver, Celeste walked back to the store. Not to the 3rd floor. To the heritage display on the main level, near the entrance. A series of framed photographs and archival items from the store's history. The kind of installation that corporate offices put in lobbies to suggest continuity and warmth. She looked at a photograph of the original Victoria store, 1963. Black and white. Customers in coats, a doorman in a uniform, a Christmas display in the window. She thought about her mother in a store like this one. 22 years of visits, twice a year maybe, buying something beautiful in a way she never talked about. An act of quiet insistence. The kind that doesn't make headlines. The kind that just continues. She stood there for a few minutes by herself, in the middle of the morning foot traffic. Then she picked up her bag and walked out into the November rain. If you're watching this from somewhere in Canada, from Scarborough or Halifax or Calgary or Vancouver, then you know that this country has a particular way of treating certain kinds of dignity as invisible. Not loudly, not always with malice, but consistently in the small moments, in the assumptions made in 14 seconds before a word is spoken. Celeste Oduya did not go to the press. She did not post about it. She went back to Toronto, to her firm, to the cases on her desk, to the green notebook of Yoruba proverbs her mother had left her. She wore the burgundy gown to the conference dinner on Wednesday evening. A colleague told her she looked like she'd just won something. She said, "I feel like I did." Comment below. Have you ever had to prove you belong somewhere you had every right to be? Tell us. We want to hear it. And if this story stayed with you, the way the best ones do, like the video and subscribe to Heirloom Tales. We'll be here next week with another one.